County Council meeting's now in session. The Honorable Christy Cox will give the invocation pledge of allegiance.
Let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, I thank you for all the many blessings that you've given to this county. I especially thank you for the teachers at this time of year. I pray that you would watch over them and our children as they head back to school and provide them a safe and secure place to learn. I thank you for all the men and women in uniform who serve to protect us. I pray that you watch over them and their families as they sacrifice to serve us. Finally, Lord, I ask for your guidance and wisdom tonight as we do the work of the people. I pray that our decisions would be in the best interest of the people. In your Son's name, amen.
Amen. Amen.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First order of business is oath of office. When I call your name, if you'd come forward and get in front of our county attorney. Nicole Druckenmiller, I'm sorry. I was close, I guess.
I bet she knows who she is.
And Mike Drummond, Kathy Jackson, Kelly Shannon. Appreciate the service. Thank you. Appreciate the service.
Thank you for
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate it. Was I close? That's what I said.
That's what I figured.
Would Stanley Wells come forward? We want to recognize Mr. Wells for his service to York County as a deputy or a captain?
Yes.
Captain?
Yes, sir.
At the Sheriff's Department. He served from November 9th, 1973 to August 31st, 2018. And I need to come up and shake your hand. Service and protecting us. If you want to say something, feel free to speak.
All right. Council Chairman Blackwell and members of the council, to our county manager, Mr. Shanahan and his staff, I'd like to thank you for acknowledging the service that I've been able to render to York County. And I'd also like to acknowledge and thank Sheriff Tolson, the previous sheriffs that has entrusted me to serve and protect the citizens of York County during this tenure of my life. I also like to thank all the men and women who I worked with that has served. Some have lost their lives, but I'd like to thank them for their commitment to the York County Sheriff's Office mission to serve and to protect the citizens of York County. And I want to thank you for, and those before you, for the support that you've given us at the Sheriff's Office. It means a great deal to each one of the members of the York County Sheriff's Office. I'd like to thank my wife and my family, whose always supported me in the ups and the downs, because we truly had them. But last but not least, I want to give God thanks for how He's caused His grace and His mercy to abound towards me and the members of the Sheriff's Office as I served these 44 years. You know, and I consider it an honor and a privilege to be able to fulfill this task in my life at this point in time. And I just pray that you would continue to do the work that you do and bless the citizens of York County. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wells. Sheriff, did you want to say anything? If it had been Bruce, I wouldn't have said that. It'd been another 20 minutes.
He does now.
I know there's a lot of business to be done tonight, and I won't delay it too long, but I would be remiss to not, first of all, thank you all for taking the time to recognize Captain Wells and his years of service. And the man who just stood before you is a very proud but humble man, and he has done a tremendous job serving the citizens of York County, but also counseling dozens, if not hundreds, of officers through his faith and his walk with the Lord over the years. And I know that the Lord's not done with Captain Wells, and we certainly do appreciate all the years of service that my friend and Captain Stanley Wells has given to the county. I will probably not be remembered as a sheriff by many folks, just as Stanley will be remembered as the man that he is, not so much as the rank that he held or the things that he did. That's how we will all hopefully go. And I just want to, again, thank him and thank y'all.
Thank you, Sheriff. Next order of business is public forum. When I call your name, if you'd come forward, we give you 2 minutes, and then I have to cut you off, okay? So, for the next person to speak. First person is Don Clark to speak about a situation on Lake Wiley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
council
sir.
members. Don Clark, 3878 Concord Road in York, South Carolina. We've had another incident on Bonham Road, and I want to talk about sort of the continuing problem that we face here in the Lake Wiley area. Development techniques in recent years have meant clear cutting to strip the trees and natural vegetation, and the result has been silt infusion into our lakes and our streams. New home density of 6 to 8 and more per acre rely on storm sewers and retention ponds to make up for the high percentage of ground covered by roofs and driveways and hard surfaces, roadways. So in place of natural absorption, these drainage systems channel runoff and anything in its path, too often at high volume and velocity, into retention ponds that then discharge into our streams and lakes. When these designs or the retention ponds fail, as they already have, and they will again, tons of debris ends up in places where it can be impossible to clean up, and the resulting damage is typically permanent. It's very difficult to get dredging permits on Lake Wiley. It's time consuming, it's expensive. The Herald Online archives contain a spectacular trove about the true cost of this type of pollution into our lake. And the environmental stories of breaches on both sides of the lake and in the districts surrounding the lake, and the stop work orders that are currently in place. Let's face it, the siltation fines and the stop work orders have proven to be an adequate deterrent to the continuous threat that developers pose to our water resources. Further, neither the fines or the stop work orders do anything to remediate the damage to our lake and its tributaries. It's time for stronger penalties, protection measures, but it's also time for new provisions for damage remedies.
Don, you used up your 2 minutes, but only one other person signed up, so I'll give you another 30 seconds.
Okay. Well, two ideas. One might be environmental damage bonds. I think there's some troubles with that, but the other issue may be that we just need to create a protection zone around the lakes and the major tributaries where clear cutting would be prohibited. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. The next person is Michael Stair. Is that correct? Stair?
Yes, sir. Sorry.
Yeah. Oh,
Actually, I believe we're going to be addressing.
and if you would give your name and address for the clerk to council.
Michael Stair, 2988 Filbert Highway, Clover. We're actually probably going to be addressing the question that I had as a whole in the rest of the meeting. I misunderstood the sign-up sheet, so my apologies.
So your business is under public hearing, is that what you're saying, or?
Here to learn what we have to learn.
Gotcha.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. So do we have a motion on consent agenda?
Move to approve. Second.
Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Next item. Public hearing. Case number 1809, zoning from RUD to light industrial at 2744 Meadow Road in the Clover community. Anybody here want to speak against? Against? Anybody want to speak in favor?
Move to close.
Well, I think, Dwayne, you, okay.
Unless it was just gonna go sliding through, I don't know.
There's nothing to vote on.
Yeah, this is no vote tonight, it's just,
Yeah, okay. Yeah, you can stay here, sure. All set. Good evening, Chairman Dr. Blackwell, and council members. My name is Dwayne Christopher. I'm a landscape architect representing the owner of the property. My address is 2424 India Hook Road, Suite 220, Rock Hill, South Carolina, 29732. I'm here with the owner of the property, Mr. Gary Rower, to facilitate the rezoning from RUD, rural development, to light industrial. First, a small amount of history to give you a bit of background for the reason we are here. Mr. Rower purchased the property at the end of 2017. He also purchased the surrounding property. Let's see if this one works here.
just,
Oh,
there's one on the remote, Dwayne.
My wand didn't work, so I guess I didn't say the proper. Very good. Okay, so this is the area for rezoning, and here's a little map that shows all the acreage around it. So Mr. Rower purchased all this property. The surrounding property is also RUD. The intended use of the property is to unload equipment into the warehouses. There's 2 warehouses here, 1, 2. And store until sold. He does not intend to use it for retail or any other type of use for the foreseeable future. In the mid-1980s, the county went through a complete countywide zoning, as you know, of the unincorporated areas. Apparently at that time, the zoning did not reflect the use of the property, or since that time. The property has 2 existing warehouses that are on 1 acre plus parcel that was part of the larger piece. So there's the 1 acre, which is this here. And Meadow Road, and there is the creek here with a floodplain. The larger piece, before the 1 acre was cut out, was approximately 8+ acres, and before that it was 14 acres in the 1960s. In the late 60s into about 1976, the property was used for textile manufacturing then to a more retail use when the owner sold furniture and other associated products. This warehouse and retail establishment was active until the first of this year, 2018, when 3R Properties, LLC, purchased it, and South Bend Industries, Incorporated, is using the buildings for the warehousing. The intent, again, is to store mostly small manufacturing equipment that will be resold. There will be a tractor-trailer trucks that will be there occasionally to unload the material. Well, there will be people that will unload them, but not the... And small trucks when sold. So what there is a loading dock area here and another one here. This represents asphalt. There's some concrete and gravel there. And these are sidewalks. Most of the time, there will not be personnel there at this location, possibly one or two on those occasions when they're unloading the material. After the rezoning, we will go through the site plan approval with the county, planning, update the buildings, and site to existing codes. The site will be a small challenge because of the closeness to the road and one log curb cut. And what I mean by that is the setback is actually back in here, and then this is all one curb cut. So we'll have to go through that issue. We will do what we can to make it safe. In fact, the owner already has done some work to make that safe. He secured additional security rails on the concrete pads. And we have, can I move the slides? How do I do that? Ah, here we go. Excellent. So this is building number A, which is closest to the road. And you can see how it's cleaned up. And then these are the new rails put around. And there's another view with the two buildings. The exact acreage will be determined once we go through the site plan process, because it may be 1 acre exactly, or it might be 1.1 or something so close to that. The site has physical limitations, so the use of the adjacent surrounding property that he owns has very little room to do anything else because of the creek and the associated creek buffer. So, again, there's the surrounding area, and there's just not much you can do. Okay. We also have 3 letters of support. Do I have time to read these, or is it appropriate to read them, or because people?
Yeah, it's up to you, but I think we get the message.
Okay, we do have, and we could submit these for the record?
Absolutely.
Okay. We hope that the council takes a positive perspective on this rezoning, and we ask for your support, excuse me. And here's Mr. Rower, if you have any questions for him. Gary?
Good evening.
Thank you.
Sure, hey. And we just listen to you, we won't interact. Is there anything you want to tell us?
Let me explain our business a little bit. The good Lord's blessed us with the largest eBay store in the South. We go into factories and we buy their equipment when they close, and we turn around and bring them to our facilities in Clover, and we turn around and sell them on eBay all over the world. We specialize in parts rooms, like the supply rooms. If you have a machine go down or a part go off a machine, we specialize in buying part rooms and that type of thing. And this is, actually, we didn't know it when we bought it. Dwayne's the one that caught it. The bank didn't catch it. I didn't catch it. The attorney didn't catch it, that it was zone RUD. I don't know how it went through. It's just something that we run up against. Like he said, it was existing business, I believe, for 40 years there. The same owners had it, and they just transferred from textile manufacturing to, like you said, retail furniture. Actually, it was retail furniture on the bottom side, and the top side was a carpet store. So if anybody has any questions, I'll be glad to try to answer.
You're good. We just listen to you, we don't
Okay.
interact.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else want to speak in favor? Have a motion to close?
Move close.
We did have a couple people lined up, but one was a neighbor who's elderly, and I think they were overwhelmed by the people and didn't think we'd be.
I don't blame them, I am too. So we had a motion to have a second. Discussion, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Next item, whole public hearing, case number 1810, to rezone from RUD to RUD1 and RC2 at 172 and 296 Riddle Mill Road in the Clover community. Anybody here want to speak against? Anybody? Is that? Okay. Well, here again, if you want to speak, you can come up to the podium and say your piece. Anybody? Yes, ma'am. Just be sure to give your name and address for the clerk to council.
Okay, well, I'm Mary Beth Yancey. My address is 6790 Stonebridge Lane, Clover, 29710. I don't even know where to begin. I moved here 13 years ago from Charlotte to get away from the congestion and the influx of people. I grew up in Charlotte and had horses where South Park was.
Wow.
So I remember when Sharon Road was a 2-lane gravel road. So my husband and I purchased this property on Stonebridge with 10 acres of peace and quiet. I remember going down Riddle Mill when we first moved there, and you wouldn't pass a car. In fact, I remember you wouldn't pass a car from about where the Publix is now, down 557. So fast forward the last 3 or 4 years, I have gotten to where I don't even like to take a left off of Riddle Mill onto 557. I've come so close to being hit so many times. I know that we've had quite a few accidents there, and I believe a couple fatalities. The woods that are there, well, the woods that have been clear cut in Lake Wiley, and this is just an educated guess, have forced a lot of wildlife that we weren't used to, as in coyote, have made their way over to our area, to the point where I've lost countless chickens. Now, I know that might not be a big deal to some people, but it was a very big deal to me, because they're my pets, and I love them. I don't see deer anymore. I don't see turkey anymore. It is absolutely to the point where there's so much traffic that I'm going around my rear end to get to my elbow to get onto 557 so I can leave town. It used to take me, I work out of the home now, so I don't have to deal with the traffic at work hours, but when I did have to go to Charlotte, what used to take me 10 or 15 minutes to get to the bridge now takes me a good 20 to 30, depending. We're having a lot of traffic accidents where the BP station is there. The destruction of our woods is heartbreaking. I know my husband and I are at the point now where we're looking to leave. And I wasn't going to do that. I'm from this area and I don't want to leave. But I know personally I can't take this traffic much longer. I can't even begin to imagine if they try to build 330 houses at that intersection. That is, I mean, we can't handle what we got. And then my understanding is they also own the land across the street, so I imagine that's going to get developed eventually too. I mean, the quality of life has plummeted. I mean, I don't know any other way to put it. It has truly plummeted. There's litter. It's just out of control. I feel like the development over the last 3 or 4 years is out of control, and to even consider putting 330 houses on that land is, I don't know how that's going to even work. I can't even fathom what that's going to do to Riddle Mill. Riddle Mill's not in good shape anyway. And it's a small road. And now you're gonna have the widening of 557, and then you're gonna all that traffic's got to come down Riddle Mill and get on Oakdale, which Oakdale is a pothole mess. So I mean, I just don't even know how we're going to be able to handle that kind of growth without some sort of control. I feel like there is no control in Lake Wylie. So I'm really hoping that we can maybe pause and try to get some things in place so Lake Wylie keeps the small town feel that is what attracted us to the area. I'm so disappointed there's a Starbucks coming too. That is disappointing, but I won't go there.
I'm with you on that.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, ma'am. And we'd appreciate if you don't clap so we can hear anybody else that wants to speak. Yes, sir. If somebody wants to say those against this stand up, that works better than the clapping part.
Norman Hatley, 800 Riddle Mill Road. I basically second what she said. I came here in the late 70s, 2-lane country road. I live on 8 1/3 acres. I have several neighbors here feel the same way I do. We'd rather not have the growth if we can help it. I know we can't stop it all, but in the afternoon, if I don't go to the trash dump down Riddle Mill, cross 557, if I don't go before 2 o'clock or anything after that, it probably takes me 10 minutes to get across the highway. And usually you can't get across unless you go a different detour. You take a right and then you go down a turn, come back up to get into the dump where the trash is on Bethel School Road. This is just a minor amount of difficulty we're having with all the traffic. The holes, the concrete trucks. I live on a curve. I'm like this lady. I won't even take a left out of my driveway. I go to the right. I come back from the other way, so it won't be so dangerous. We had wrecks up and down the road. We've had kids killed down the intersection, right down on Oak Ridge. And if you can slow the growth down, we certainly would appreciate it. And so we're against the zoning. That's going to give a lot of houses permission to be in that area. Also, right across on Bethel School Road, I don't know if this is true or not, but development coming over that way will also overpopulate our roads. From the Gaston County side, right up where it changes into North Carolina, they've already got growth up that way coming. And everybody wants to come to Lake Wylie for business, and we're going to be in a very distressed situation if it continues. So we're asking that you please slow it down. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else want to speak? Yes, ma'am.
My name's Benita Westbrook. I live at 6760 Stonebridge Lane. And for the same reasons that the last two speakers talked about, I am opposed of increasing the development on that property. Of course, we would all like to, in that area, like to say, stop, no building at all. We like to be out in our rural area and would love to hear the cows moo next door, at least I would. But I would like to encourage the council to please take the current population and residents into consideration in what we are dealing with as far as traffic and the loss of our woods and our area, peaceful, quiet area. Please take it in consideration and vote no against the rezoning. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Anybody else against? Hang on one second, I think. No, you go ahead. You look like you got your hands full.
I'm just going to make it quick because we've got kindergarten in the morning. But I am also on Stonebridge Lane. I'm neighbors of Mary Beth and Benita. We just moved here probably 6-8 months ago. It's not been a year quite. We're from Steel Creek area, which has had a lot of growth. 28278 was our zip code, and it's like one of the fastest growing zip codes in the area, which is why we left. We looked in Fort Mill, we looked in TK. We picked Clover because, sorry, because we could get lots of land for our kids to grow up on and not have to worry about traffic, and we were almost T-boned coming here, I'm sorry. We pulled out at the intersection of Riddle Mill and 557, the same one they're talking about, and or almost T-boned coming out. It was 5:30, rush hour traffic. So, you know, they're not just, it's not just words. You know, I had the kids in the car. It's, sorry.
You're good.
Get it together. I wasn't gonna say anything, but we were this close to being T-boned trying to get here, to be here for this. So it's an issue, it's a real issue.
Can we get you to state your name and address for the record?
Yeah, Crystal Wells, 6748 Stonebridge Lane. So, you know, we bought 7.5 acres to have some peace and quiet and get away from Fort Mill. I didn't want my kids going into a school district that can barely handle what it has. And I just worry that we haven't been here a year and it's already, it seems like the same pattern. So, that's really all.
Thank you, ma'am. Yes, sir.
I'm not a public speaker.
Oh, you're good.
Don Johnson's my name. I live out on Knight Road, 6010, and it's right off Riddle Mill Road. And we've been down here about 40 years. We left Charlotte to get out of all that traffic and came down here to God's country. And we've loved it ever since. We bought a small farm, and we've added to it over the years, and we wouldn't sell any of it. We've been offered some big money. We won't even talk about it. So I'm not trying to stop progress, don't get me wrong, but everybody deserves to have a little spot of land they can move around on. So, and we agree with that. And we would, in fact, we would like to see, if you have to develop it, at least have an acre per house, so you have a little garden spot. And that's the minimum I'd go with. But the more land you can have, the better. But anyway, I just wanted to let you know, just that the traffic is getting out of hand, but do what you can. Thank you.
You did good. Anybody else against? Yes, ma'am. Well, I saw her first. You'll be next.
Thank you. Tricia Grokowski, 3018 Patrick Place Circle. G as in George, R-E-K-O-S-K-I. My husband and I relocated from New Jersey 2 years ago, and one of the primary reasons for leaving New Jersey was because of all the traffic congestion. And now that I'm in Clover, and now I watch and I see what is happening to the area, I concur with everyone else that has spoken here, but I think someone needs to truly look at the infrastructure surrounding the areas of where they want to rebuild, because the infrastructure at the present time can't handle what's there already. As a retired nurse, I have an entire different agenda, because if something ever happened to anybody in our development during rush hour traffic, we'd be dead before an ambulance could actually get through. There is no side, places to pull over to allow, ambulance and rescue vehicles to get past. I'm not quite sure. Right where we live, there's a Lowe's and there's a church. I don't know what the problem is at that intersection. There is probably an accident there on a weekly basis. And I mean, I'm not talking just, fender benders. It's cars overturned, the ambulances, fire engines blocking traffic. You have one accident and you're going to sit for hours, over an hour, because there's only one more lane. So I think somebody needs to truly look at the whole picture and make a rational decision. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Yes, sir.
My name is Peter Motto. I live at 6728 Highway 557. I've been in York County now for 14 years. I came out here and I knew we were growing at a rapid rate. I understand that we had a moratorium on at the time to slow growth, and I know that's been lifted. It's been very noticeable around me. I use Riddle Mill regularly. I work at the airport. Traffic coming through Lake Wiley is horrendous. I know if you all have driven through it, you understand. I don't know what makes sense to build more houses right now until we can catch up with the roads that we're driving on. The young lady that addressed, if you have an accident right now, I don't see you getting a lot of attention, medical attention, and time to save your life. In many situations, I've had just 5 or 6 serious accidents near my house, and I watched how long it took rescue units to arrive on the scene, and I just don't know where we're going with all this development. I understand we need growth, but I think that everything else that attributes to that needs to be addressed before we can do it. We have that big trucking company on the corner of Crossroad right now that is causing holes in the road, and nobody's repairing that. We know 557 was a very hazardous road for over a year. I stopped with more than 3 or 4 cars that snapped tires, tie rods. Their tires were flattened. I called 911 on this hole for over 3 months. The last incident was a young black man on a motorcycle. It broke his fork when he hit it. He was very lucky he wasn't killed in that hole. I called on that hole 3 months earlier. Things like that are not being addressed. How can we add to that? I think we understand what's going on, and yeah, I understand we need development, but I think the other stuff needs to be addressed first before we move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else opposed? Yeah.
Eric Burkhart, 851 Riddle Mill Road. Would like to agree with everyone that's spoken so far. I'd also like to address the school issues. I no longer have kids in the district, but I do have grandkids in this district now. And, you know, with the growth comes overcrowded schools. I spoke with a friend of mine that's been teaching in this district now for about 12 years, and he's at one of the newer schools, and he says they're already pretty much at capacity. So we've got, you know, future growth here, and the schools aren't planned, I know. One issue I would like to address with the traffic. A couple years ago, well, actually last year, they did 2 of the counter studies on Oak Ridge, which is just adjacent, comes out there from Riddle Mill onto 557. And not sure how they planned those things, but they did the first one during spring break during school, and they did the next one during Christmas break. So I really don't think those 2 are very accurate. I don't know how the roads department plans those, but maybe you have some input on that. I worked in Charlotte ever since I moved here 20 years ago. We chose Clover for the same reason these folks did. We could have a nice piece of land out in the country, you know, a little quieter. I drive into Charlotte every day. And when I moved here, Buster Boyd was still a steel bridge with 2 lanes. 49 was already 4-laned on the South Carolina side. And of course, Mecklenburg County took them about another 6 years to meet us on the bridge and get it 4-laned and then do 49. And it's already over capacity. Yeah, well, there's no other way across the lake without going to Gaston County or down to Rock Hill. And most of these new growth, these folks aren't going to be working in York County, maybe a small percentage of them. The business growth's in Charlotte. Yeah, so that's my traffic concern there. You know, you can't get to work, people not going to move here anyway. So if you jam it up, you got nothing. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next person, I think you were next.
Greg Willis, 1021 Riddle Oak Lane, Clover, South Carolina. I want to kind of continue what the gentleman here was saying about the traffic. The last meeting that we had with MI Homes, they proposed 0.2 acres per house back then. I don't know if that's been revised or not, but that's kind of beside the point. That the traffic, again, is ridiculous. I I know in the back of your mind, you probably already know that the widening process has already been approved. That's for the traffic that we have now, not to put another 200 or 300 houses in that little area. There's a creek that runs through there. We've already got a problem in Lake Wiley with an apartment complex with mud flowing into the lake. Where's that, if they have the issue, and it's a, I don't know, 50, 75-foot drop from the top all the way down to that creek. Who's going to be responsible for that? I know Allison's doing a great job with those people up there. The other thing I kind of have a problem with that acreage is it's labeled as farm use, which I'm new to that. So they've labeled this farm use. Not 1 acre has been farmed. The total taxes they paid on those 300 acres was under $500. I know I have an acre. My taxes were $1,800. So, I mean, that's kind of crazy that they've got away with that for 10 years at least. That's as far back as I can go. But on the other end of that is building this on Riddle Mill. There's going to be 2 entrances on Riddle Mill for 300 houses. And they came to us and they said, they're going to have a 100-foot buffer and all that. Well, that's fantastic. We're not going to go in there. I don't know anybody, if they end up having neighbors or friends or something that goes in there that said that we're welcome. Well, the people building it welcomes us, but not the people who live there. And again, the traffic, the wrecks, I think they average 10 a year, and with some fatalities. This, in my opinion, and I'm sure everybody else, is ridiculous. I mean, like the guy just said, who's going to come to this area, build growth, and if you can't get in and out to work? So, and not only that is, you've got Belmont Land Investment is across the street from the dump, which is Bethel School and 557. They own 400 acres. How many houses are they going to build on that? So, I mean, that's just 2 places. That's the KMB Family Limited Partnership for 200 and whatever, and you got another 400 plus, and that's across the street from each other. Like I said, the 5-lane has already been approved up to, I think, Far Yarns, but that's for now. That's not for handling 1,000 more houses. So I hope you take that in consideration. I don't know what else to say, but, I'm with these other people. I've been here 10 years. I lived in Tega Cay before this. Actually, I lived in Tega Cay when there was a guard shack, and they had just the city. It wasn't even a city then. Then the city came in, started building some houses, which was great, and then they opened it up. They started building subdivision after subdivision after subdivision, and I don't know if anybody's driven past Tega Cay lately, but you cannot get in and out, and I just don't want that to happen to us. I love it here. Please don't force me to leave. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else? Yes, ma'am.
Dorothy Johnson, 6400 Royal Pines Drive, Clover. I was at the meeting at the firehouse back in February, March, whatever. The developer said, it's not feasible to build 1 or 2 acre properties because the people moving in don't want a lawn and don't want maintenance. They just want a home to live in. That's his perspective. I believe 1 and 2 acre plots would sell, and that we should strongly encourage these builders to do 1 and 2 acre at least, if not even more. And of course, the traffic situation, the roads should be widened before these buildings start going up. That's what I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
Don Clark, 3878 Concord Road, York. Once again, this is a situation where the land is currently zoned is not economically attractive to the large builders. And so once again, they're here for a zoning change. One of the reasons it's not economically attractive is because the terrain is difficult there. So they want to cluster. Well, the reason the terrain is difficult is because it sits right above Crowder's Creek. So to do what they want to do, I've seen the plan. Again, this is a clear-cut situation. and Crowders Creek will be the site of the next siltation problem if this is approved. But beyond that, what they talked about, 300 plus homes, that's another 150 school-aged children. That's 6 more classrooms in that district. That's 600 more cars. And as was pointed out, the builders like to point to Pennies for Progress as being the solution to the traffic problems. And as we all know, Pennies for Progress is the solution to the problems we've already created, not the problems that we anticipate. And quite frankly, I don't think you could ever pass another Pennies for Progress initiative if people thought that it was to permit greater development of the area. So again, there's 3 impacts here. Again, I see an environmental problem. Obviously, the road problem the residents have talked about, and there'll be a school impact. And I'd like to thank the council for taking the first steps toward approving the Fort Mill impact fee. We're going to need one here in Clover. We have thousands of approved homes already, which means maybe 1,500 kids, maybe 60 more classrooms. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else? Yes, ma'am.
Terry Killian, 305 Clarendon Estates Drive in Clover. I chose Clover to live because I was born here. I was born on Lincoln Road with 87 acres. Only left to pursue a nursing degree in Charleston, returned and worked here. And my brothers and I still live in Bethel Community. And that's what this really is, Bethel Community. It's not all about Lake Wiley, it's not Clover. This is the impact that we're seeing. And I'm so thoroughly frustrated. First of all, we grew up here, went to school here. My one brother has 2 grandchildren, I have 2. One of my children teaches at Crowders Creek. My son-in-law has a business here. And besides what everybody else has said, I called the Sheriff's Department about 2 months ago to ask for assistance in the speeding issue. So now my question is, they didn't have enough help. They don't have enough resources to supply a need that we needed. So with all this that's coming, how is that other resources going to be available if we keep adding homes and people to the area? So I'd love for you to consider that. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Anybody else? Anybody want to speak in favor? You're a brave man.
I'm being paid to do it. Thank you. My name is Scott Herr. My address is 5350 77 Center Drive in Charlotte, North Carolina. I am the Vice President of Land for MI Homes. Tonight, I'm going to briefly touch on a couple of points about this, what we believe will be a great community. First, I'm going to do a brief introduction of MI, then I'm going to explain sort of where we started, and I think some of the perception that you heard tonight is sort of where we started when we had our initial informal meetings with the neighbors, and then how our plan has changed over time and what it has evolved into. MI Homes is a public company. We've been around for 40 years. We've built over 100,000 homes over the life of the company. Last year, we built over 5,000. And last year, we did almost $2 billion in revenue. Here in Charlotte, we build about 400 to 500 homes per year, sprinkled throughout the Charlotte area, as you can see there. Right now, we currently have about 14 or 15 neighborhoods. By the end of the year, it'll be closer to 19 or 20. Our homes range in price from anywhere in the mid-200s all the way up to $600,000 or $700,000, depending upon the location. And every MI home comes with a 15-year industry-leading structural warranty, which makes us unique amongst all the other public home builders out there. This, as everyone knows, is the site. It's just to the west of the intersection of Highway 49 and Highway 557. Just past the school, and as everyone knows, that stretch between the intersection of 49 and 557 will be expanded as part of the Pennies for Progress improvements. I'd also like to point out that the intersection of Riddle Mill and 557 will be signalized, I believe, as a part of that improvement process. So that is the general location. The site itself is 222 acres. So when we started the process, quite a while ago, we always start with the land plan. The land plan calls for 1 to 2 units per acre. And the guidance we were getting is that if you're going to present something, it should be in the theme of conservation subdivisions. So what we tried to do when we came up with our first plan was to meet or exceed the expectations there. Come up with a density that was sort of in the middle of the guidance for the plan, but then also try and exceed the open space requirements. Now, let me stress for everyone in the room that the plan that I'm about to show you is not the plan that we have submitted. This is a plan that we started with, and it was changed as a result of neighborhood and community feedback. So this is the plan that many people in the room saw previously when we held our previous meeting. There are 333 units, over 222 acres. 90 acres was designated as open space, which exceeded the requirement under the zoning we were going for. The overall density was 1.5, but we knew going into it that there would be some pushback, but many of the arguments that you heard here this evening, we also heard at that meeting. And so what we did is we went through a process of trying to refine everything. And so this is sort of the steps we took and to get to where we are today. We met with council members, we met with the planning staff, then we had our informal neighborhood meeting. And it was there that we learned about the traffic concerns, the environmental impacts, and the overall concerns about overall growth in the area. And it resulted in some extensive changes to the plan that you just saw there. And it's a plan that we believe gives people a neighborhood where the land and the environment and the natural features of the property itself become as much of an amenity as any pool or cabana or playground or anything like that. We circulated the plan to some planning board council members, throughout the spring, and then formally went through the submittal process and started our TIA, and that's where we are today. But it's important that everyone know that we tried to listen to the community and make changes based on that feedback. So with the plan that I'm about to show you, it's 217 units as opposed to 333 where we started. It's a density of 0.98 units to the acre, so that's less than 1 unit, obviously, to the acre. There are 152 acres of open space on this 222-acre site, which is roughly almost 70% of the site. So here, where you can see the main changes to the site plan, let me see if I can find this laser. The green. Oh, I got it. Sorry. There we go. So the main changes on the site plan are here, in this area, obviously, and here. So previously in this area, we had over 100 homes. So what we decided to do, we knew that density was going to be an enormous problem, but we also wanted to make the site efficient to a certain degree. So we decided to preserve as much of this area and not touch any of it, or touch it in a very limited way in this area, but then also up in this section as well. And so the improvements here are going to be very limited. We intend to put grade out or create some sort of a common field that kids can use to play soccer, football, games, whatever. In addition to that, in this area, there'll be a gathering space with fire pit, things like that. You can see trails that are going throughout the site that'll hug the creek in the area. And then sporadically, we will spread throughout the site picnic tables and fun, unique play areas for kids so that it draws them out of their houses and into this environment that we will be preserving as we develop the site. In addition to that, the site will also have a traditional amenity. But we think what's really going to drive the acceptance from the buyer of the community, and what makes this special, is this incredible amount of open space that we're going to be preserving. I will also note that along the boundary of the community, we are going to have a 100-foot buffer. The site is essentially fully treed. And so when you drive in front of this community along 557 along Riddle Mill, you will primarily see trees there. There'll be this 100-foot buffer, and I'll show you some renderings here of what that might look like. So we believe that we made some very significant changes, and frankly, I think that the change that we made this a much better neighborhood. I think it's very exciting, and I think it'll be unique in the Charlotte area. These are some renderings or some examples of what the front of the community is going to look like. So here you can see this is a drawing of what the 100-foot buffer is going to look like. This is an example of what our monumentation looks like. It's going to be stone and wood, and it's trying to play off of the nature themes. And excuse me, in addition to that, this is an example of one of the amenities we have built. These pictures here are examples of the sort of architecture that we would be using to build there as well. And then, as I indicated, we'll be building a trail network, and throughout it, there will be, play areas and cabanas and picnic areas. And the idea is we go for a rustic, woodsy feel throughout it. So as you walk through the woods, it's a very natural feeling, fun environment that engages the residents in the area around them. So it's true, there's no denying that these homes and these lots, the ones that will be built, are clearly smaller than an acre, right? But I think what we're trying to do here is also give the residents a unique open space that is theirs as well, as that fulfills the need that a lot of people here share, which is to have some open space of your own. And then these are examples of the homes, the fine homes that we would be building on this site. We would build 2 to 3 of our series. The Manor series is a very large product line. It goes from anywhere from 3,600 to 5,500 square feet, which is huge. Then we'll have traditional homes up here on the upper right, which go from 2,000 to 3,600 square feet. And then we have what we call our cottage series, which is really, it's a master down product that is, some people can refer to it as age targeted, but it's really just a master down product with a bonus room up above, and those can go up to 3,200 square feet. So hopefully, and that ends my presentation. Hopefully what you've seen here tonight is that we took a lot of time and effort to listen to the community and try and come up with a plan that was incorporated their feedback and we think is unique, not only in this area, but we also think unique in the Charlotte area, and I think it would be, we're excited, hopefully, to build it someday. Thank you for your
Y'all
time.
met with the neighbors after you came up with a new plan?
No, we didn't.
You did or didn't?
No, we did not. We decided that after we took that feedback that we would do it through this process.
Okay, thank you, sir. Anybody else want to speak in favor? Nope. Anybody else want to speak in favor? Have a motion to close?
Move to close. Move to close.
No. You're hurting your argument when you start doing those kind of things. Question on the motion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Next item, hold
Mr. I think I did. I second.
Sir?
I think Michael made the motion. Did you make the motion to close?
Made a motion to close.
I second.
No, a second.
I'm sorry.
Mr. Chairman, if you would, I'd like to just kind of put the public on notice as to the new process that we're doing, that these are coming to us first, and then now they're going on to the Planning Commission. So the Planning Commission will be the one to make their recommendation to send it back to us. We're trying a different process. Normally, we don't get these public hearings and going through the process till after it's heard at the Planning Commission, but we're doing something different now, so we're actually hearing part of what's going on. Then now it goes to the Planning Commission, then after a while it comes back to us for the vote. So just wanted to kind of make you all aware of the process. We are under a new process now, so I just wanted to let you guys know. We're not voting on this tonight. It was just for informational purposes only, then it'll move forward. So just want to, you may be wondering why we not voting or taking a lot of back and forth comments about it. This is our first time hearing of the plan, so now it goes on to the Planning Commission.
Then to add to that, per Mr. Wright, it's for our ability to kind of get a feel for things before it goes through the process. But next item.
So the next meeting you'll want to attend will be the Planning Commission on September the 10th. When was that? September the 10th. Appreciate
Okay.
everybody coming.
So next item, hold public hearing on case number 1811, rezone from RC1 to BD2 at 1383 Gold Hill Road in the Fort Mill community. Anybody here want to speak against? Anybody want to speak in favor? Yes, sir. Aren't you relieved?
Yes.
You survived the first curve.
How are y'all doing tonight? Appreciate your time. Thanks for hearing. I'm here with the developer and the owner of the land. My name is Michael Theberg. My address is 6720 Hollow Oak Drive in Mint Hill, North Carolina. Make sure I get this right here. There's the laser pointer. All right, here we go. Very good. The site that we are looking and asking for the rezoning on is across from the Spicewood Drive on Gold Hill Road. It's just a little bit east of the shopping center there with the Harris Teeter, a little bit west of there, Gold Hill. And get a little bit closer look. We've so far gone through a traffic study approval process, have that approved by a city DOT in the county, had a pre-application meeting in June, and now we're going through the public process that you just had outlined, which was new to the county for this public hearing coming up ahead of the actual planning board votes. The two intended uses of the property are a daycare facility and potentially medical office on the balance of the parcel, although those are still, the medical office use is still subject to some change with what would be allowed within the requested zoning district of BD2. Again, here's the site location, a little bit closer up view. Across our entrances lined up, our entrance is lined up to Spicewood entrance there for that existing subdivision, and this would be what would be developed. Just a little bit of context, we're up here just outside on the outer edge of that community center circle, which is centered on the major intersection and shopping center there. This is our overall view of the zoning. We have a buffer on that side of the property. It's a residential use here and here. So there's a 20-foot buffer, and part of it with a fence is required by code. Pretty good amount of plantings. I think it was 8 or so trees per 100 feet. So it would be a pretty good dense buffer back there to try to help make this use fit in well with the neighborhood that's already there. Our stormwater would be built for the entire site down in that corner. Over here on the right side would be the intended location of the daycare building and facilities, and then that other envelope is where the office, medical office, or potential other use might go. And then here's a little bit better close-up view of the use. Again, this being the daycare over here with parking, outdoor play areas for the kids there. And this, again, is really just a reserved area for a building envelope with some parking around it for access, since that use isn't known precisely at this time right now. These are some potential elevations for the daycare building with a mix of fiberboard siding, which is commonly known as hardy plank, but other similar products exist, and asphalt roofing, so a good-looking product. There's several other ones in the area that are either under consideration or being built. It's a fairly large, well-respected national chain in terms of the daycare facilities, so they definitely have a good product. They have a good reputation. That was basically it. Is there anything else you guys want to say?
Thank you, sir.
All right. Thank
Appreciate
you all.
it.
You have a good night.
Anybody else want to speak in favor? Have a motion to close?
Second.
Discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Next item, hold public hearing, case number 1812, to rezone from RD1 to RUD at 531 Neely Store Road. Anybody here want to speak against? Anybody want to speak in favor? Yes, sir.
My name is James Farabee. I live at 531 Neely Store Road, and this is my son, James Farabee.
Welcome.
And
My son started a homeschool project and had a few goats, and then it kind of grew, and it kind of became a little enterprise. He's got some goats and sheep. He's actually growing heritage sheep, and he's also got some poultry, some turkeys, and so we realized that, wait a minute, we're not zoned right. So we're going to have zero impact on infrastructure. We're going to have zero impact on parking. We're going to preserve the natural rural environment and feel of all our neighbors. The sign was out front of our neighborhood, and one gentleman stopped and said, "What's happening here?" And he said, "Oh, we're just making sure we can keep our animals, and we're just everything." He said, "Okay, so I don't have to go to city council." So anyway, so this should be a up or down, but we're just trying to make sure our use, we have about 20, 30 animals that are grazing and eating the grass. There's no infrastructure cost or buildings to be added. We just want to correct the tick mark on the site for having proper zoning.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Anybody else in favor?
Move to close.
Do you want to speak? No, you're good? Okay. Had a motion to close. Do we have a second?
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Next item. Hold public hearing case number 1813 to rezone from RUD to RUD1 at 1712 Gardendale Road in the Fort Mill community. Anybody here want to speak against? Anybody want to speak in favor? Yes, sir. Remember to give your name and address.
My name's Scott Neesmith. My address is 2905 Eppington South Drive in Fort Mill. I own Oz Custom Built Homes, and we're here to see if we can get the zoning changed from RUD to RUD1, which is we're still looking to develop and build a low-density neighborhood on 10 acres. And this change in the zoning would not allow modular homes. So we're actually wanting to build custom homes on this property. That's, I guess, all I got to say.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Anybody else in favor? Have a motion to close?
Move to close. Second.
Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Next item, hold public hearing case number 1814 to rezone from RD1 to RC2 at 4270 Marshall Road. Anybody here want to speak against? Anybody want to speak in favor?
Move to close.
Second.
Discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Next item, hold public hearing case number 1815, rezoned from RUD and RD1 to BD3 at, along Highway 557 and Glen Brandon Road in the Clover community. Is this the one you wanted to talk about?
We're good.
You're good? Okay. Anybody here want to speak against? Anybody want to speak in favor?
Can we hear what the favor is from? I don't want to go against, because I don't know what the zoning is for.
I don't hear.
Explain that for you.
Yeah.
I don't either.
Yeah, go ahead, that's why, that's that way you can move forward.
Yeah, well, if you don't mind, I'd kind of like to run the council meeting. Come on up front.
Is it okay if my sister and I speak together?
Can we
Sure.
come together?
My name's Ken Alexander.
And my name's Kelly Goldberg.
Uh,
I'm at 5472 Highway 557 in Lake Wiley.
I'm at 5485 Highway 557 in Bethel Community, Clover, South Carolina.
Y'all make a nice pair.
Thank you very much.
We don't look anything alike, though, do we?
I'm not going there. Y'all make a good team. Let me try
Chairman
that.
Blackwell, council members, appreciate you allowing us to come and speak and explain a little bit, especially to the public, about what we're asking to do. I understand all the sentiments of these nice folks. I've known Mr. Johnson over here for a long, long time. I've lived in Lake Wiley 58 years. My sister, she'll shoot me if I tell how long she's lived there because we were
54.
born there. The property that's in question, all of these tracts, or 8 tax map numbers, have been in our family more than 200 years. Our ancestors helped establish Bethel Presbyterian Church on Highway 557 in 1763. There's a lot of history in our family there. As y'all probably know, our father donated the property and our grandmother to Bethel Volunteer Fire Department to build the first fire department when it was in rural Bethel community. It's where we're from. Don't explain to us about the traffic in Lake Wiley, because we do know. We live on opposite sides of the road. One of the pieces of property that's in question is I'm a 25% owner of Lake Wiley Enterprises. My office was there for the last 22 years until we had to move over toward Carowinds. Try to take a left out of my driveway after 2 schools were built. I can see my office and not get there. I take a right, go to Lowe's and turn around and come back. My sister's office was in Charlotte. She lives on the opposite side of the road. She can't take a left. She takes a right, turns in my driveway, circles through my circle drive and goes to Charlotte. We
Did it this
understand
morning.
the sentiment of all the people that spoke about the traffic. Well, this was a council lady, Love, approached me. First off, I want to say one other thing. Both of us have had more numerous accounts of being offers to sell our property to multifamily developers and residential single-family developers than I care to even discuss. 3 multifamily developers have approached me wanting to build apartments or condos on my farm I grew up on. And Lord knows we have enough of those in Lake Wiley. 2 of the developers who are currently, one is completed with a project in Lake Wiley, one currently has one under construction in Lake Wiley, have both approached me. One's out of Tennessee, one's out of Ohio. Have no intentions of wanting to have condos or multifamily properties built on our farm. Council Lady Love approached me and asked me would I be interested in, she knows that there's been some commercial developers talking with my sister and I for some things I think our area really needs. And she said, well, would you be willing to have that, asked to have that property rezoned and put a stipulation on it to where you would omit multifamily development on the entire property, because my sister and I had already talked about trying to put our farm back together. Our mother, we settled the estate equally both sides of the road, and we think that'd be a good thing. We've been approached by doctors to build a doctor's office and an urgent care center in Lake Wiley. We've been approached by several restaurant chains, some business developers for where people can work, live, and play in a general area. Everyone is talking about people wouldn't move to our area because they can't drive to get to work in Charlotte. Lord knows the county needs tax bases to support all the people that are moving here and all those rooftops that do not support our tax base. If it hadn't been for Duke Power's nuclear plant sitting right down on Concord Road, we wouldn't have the schools that we do have in the Bethel, Lake Wiley, Clover area. And we're very fortunate to have that. We need businesses in our area. Everybody that lives in that area, if they want to go buy a piece of clothing other than go to Walmart, has to go somewhere else to do it. Only place you can buy a piece of clothing in Lake Wiley is at Walmart. We need restaurant chains. We need other facilities. We're fortunate enough to have the opportunity to maybe make a change for the positive in our area with 125 acres. And people said, well, why did you say BD3? I currently am the 25% owner of my father's business that was there since 1962, which is Zone BD3, which adjoins where the former Bethel Volunteer Fire Department was. And that 12 acres is part of one of the tracts. I didn't want to read all the long digit numbers of which ones I'm referring to. We have a cousin who is here, who is back there, will speak in a moment, for 3 more acres that's directly in front of my home and her home. So I really appreciate your time, and I'll let my sister go from there.
Well, I'm not sure what I could possibly add after that, but you know, my property, you know, why rezoned to commercial? My property is beside a Lowe's, a Bank of America, and a Japanese restaurant. Then you have my house, my mother's house, and on the other side of that, you have a fire department, 2 schools, and a commercial office building. So it just makes sense to rezone to commercial. It's commercial property. Everything we heard here tonight was about traffic and you can't turn left. Yes, I haven't been able to turn left in years out of my driveway during school season. I was not happy to see school start this morning. But you know, commercial development hopefully will be less of a traffic burden. With the widening of 557 and 274, we hope that that will alleviate some of the issues that Lake Wiley is currently having. But, you know, to add another housing development on top of the problem is just adding insult to injury. So, and you know, living down there all these years, Friday night and Saturday nights, it's like a mass exodus. Everybody's headed into Charlotte, going to movies, going to restaurants. You know, why can't we eat and play in Lake Wylie? You know, I've envisioned maybe someday a theater there, a hotel. I mean, with the growth that's coming into Lake Wylie, I don't think any of that's impossible. And it will probably be needed. So, that's all.
One thing I would like to add, the York County's 2035 Comprehensive Land Use Plan, if you look at it online, shows the road frontage property directly in front of both our homes. Every tract of land that we're asking for the rezoning is already cross-hatched out for commercial use in 2035. I may not be here in 2035. Thank you very much.
Thank you both.
Any
Appreciate it.
questions?
We're good.
Thank you.
Anybody else for? Yes, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for letting us come.
Be sure to give your name and address for our.
My name is Ed Jackson. I own one of the parcels that Ken and Kelly were talking about. I'm a little older than them because I can tell you that when I used to visit in that house, I could tell you the name of every family between that location and the Buster Boyd Bridge because there wasn't but 7 of them. I'm fully in favor of what they're asking because I've worked with cities and counties and enough to know that commercial development does a whole lot more to pay its way with the citizens and the city and the county involved. And I've got enough country boy in me. I appreciate those who enjoy living in apartments and condos, but we don't need any more or any greater density down there. This is a good alternative to more residential growth and not in a bad way. Thank you.
Ed, give your street address. Where you live, your street.
Where I live is 107 Garden View Court in Belmont.
Thank you, sir.
The property is in front of Kelly's house on 557.
Gotcha.
Thank you.
Anybody else for? Do we have a, yes, ma'am.
Gretchen McCarter, I live at 950 Lloyd White Road in Clover. I too have been existing in Clover for 56 years and grew up in the Bethel area. I'm very familiar with the property that Ken and Kelly both are speaking about, and I would like to speak in favor to the county that I agree to. Been there all my life, same as the others. We watched it grow. We appreciate anything you guys can do in the county to help the growth of our community in a positive direction. And certainly with the way that Ken and Kelly have presented the controlled council growth and rezoning of this property, I am in favor of.
Thank you, ma'am. Anybody else in favor? Do we have a motion to close?
Move to close.
Second.
Discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Next item, hold a public hearing and consider an application for a public service use for a convenience center to be located on parcel number 736000067 in the Fort Mill community. Anybody here want to speak against? Anybody want to speak in favor? Yes, sir. I think we know you.
I'm just going to briefly describe the project for you. Eric Rickett, 909 Goldfinch Circle, Fort Mill. Basically, this is the replacement of the previous site located at 160, which closed in February 2017 due to the sale of the property. We chose this site. It's located at 2101 Fort Mill Parkway, located about just less than a mile from the previous site.
Can you get, okay, there you go.
Okay, so the site is right here in the middle. These two existing structures will be demoed and taken down, but it's surrounded. This is Fort Mill Parkway. This is Hensley. Here's a concrete plant. The temporary site is located just right there. So like I said, we are operating the temporary site just over there. The zoning surrounding this currently is RC1, with the exception of the rear of the property. This is actually town of Fort Mill, and that's zoned R10 in the Fort Mill district. Site plan. This is the just general site plan of the area. This is Fort Mill Parkway for reference. There'll be one ingress egress off the parkway. Hensley is located kind of right down here. But the traffic pattern would kind of go in a circular flow around here. The truck traffic would enter through this area and get these boxes, which are located below grade. So they're lower up at the top for the residents to dump anything into these boxes. These over here are the compactor units and some other recycling top boxes with the attendant shed there. There's area for household hazardous waste, oil separation, and tires. And basically, that we've got a undisturbed buffer of 50 foot. We've got to meet the industrial buffer guidelines on the areas surrounding residential properties with a 30-foot buffer on this side, which is vacant property. We propose a 8-foot opaque fence surrounding the entire area. That meets the buffer requirements as well. That's basically about it. One thing that we did do prior to this as well is we wanted, in an effort to be good neighbors, you know, we're putting this in this community, sent out letters to the surrounding 17 homeowners in this area, asking for feedback, comments, or anything. I did not receive any correspondence from anyone. Doesn't mean it's closed, still open to comments moving forward, and so I encourage anyone to reach out in that area if they wish, but I'll take any questions if anybody has it.
Well, yeah, well, if anybody has a question. I have one.
All right.
That looks like it's double the normal convenience center.
Site size?
Well, I'm talking about the dumpster, the dumping.
Actually, it's consistent with the with all of our other ones. With the exception, there's one more box than most average, but that is consistent with the remaining. And well, I take that back. There's usually only 2 to 3 compactors. This one will have 4. Compacting things will make travel a little better in hauling. So I'm trying to proceed to that.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Anybody else want to speak in favor?
Move to close.
Wait a minute.
I'm opposed, but I didn't know this was what we were talking about, the way you identified it.
Okay, well, you win. I'll let you come on up and speak.
Thank you. My name is Linda Camarda, and I live at 918 Oleander Branch Court in Fort Mill. And I'm behind that site. I'm not one of the 17 homes he's talking about, so I didn't get this letter, but I'm kind of one cul-de-sac away from the concrete plant. I got to listen to the concrete plant as it is now. I get to listen to the planes because we're on the flight path. I'm really not interested in listening to the compactors or the recycling plant. I feel like the things that are happening are detracting from the value of my home, which I worked very hard to get into. So the gentleman that was just talking, from my recollections with the recycling plant, where it used to be right off 160, that's bigger than that was. Not by much, but it's bigger, and bigger than what you're currently using as the temporary. My big question is, why can't it stay where it's at? It's functional, it's working. I really liked it where it was before, but somehow I guess we missed our lease renewal and lost the property. But I'm opposed to it. I don't want anything else devaluing my property. So it's my 3 cents. I hope that you'll take it to heart and appreciate your time.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay, do we have a motion to close?
I'm sorry. I'm like her, I'm not relaxing.
Okay, I'm gonna let one more. I'm breaking my routine, but I'm gonna push over, so one more.
Yeah, you look pretty easy this week.
Huh?
You look pretty easy this week.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I'll toughen up at the next meeting.
Okay, thank you for hearing me. Lestana Potts, my husband Billy Potts, 2114 Fort Mill Parkway. We're one of the 17 homeowners that did receive the letter. My question is, in looking at this parcel of land, the opening is going to come in from the parkway. Since the parkway's been open, and of course the traffic is much heavier now, and I guess we get all this thing about traffic, school traffic, it's the loop, everything comes through. Why is the opening coming in from the parkway rather than from Hensley? I don't know that it can be, but that's my question. Because now the traffic is truly heavy. It's going to back up even more once that becomes the site where everybody's coming and bringing their disposal items. And how wide is this area going to be? Is it going to be 4 lanes getting in, or 2 getting in and 2 coming out, or just 1 in and 1 out? That's the question that I have, because it does cause a lot of traffic.
Can you get with her and give her the answer? Okay.
Okay. Anything else? Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Do we have a motion to close the hearing?
Move to close. Second.
Discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Do we have a new motion?
Move we go to old
Yeah,
business.
maybe we go into old business.
Actually, no, this one's action.
Yeah.
This is action item.
We have 2 other readings after this, is that correct? This is final reading.
Final reading. So here again, do we have a,
Documented any different than the rest of them.
do we have a motion? Need a motion? Hello?
Move to
Motion for
approve.
what?
Okay.
There's nothing.
So we got a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Discussion. Mr. Roddy.
I'd like to just give some direction to Eric to kind of let this homeowner know about how many times per day that we compact, or how often we compact, since that was one of the concerns.
Okay.
'Cause I used recycling centers. I'm a county resident, so I know how often, but I just want you to kind of explain that.
So the compactor, they're bins and it's compacted daily. The compactor app operations is it's not very loud in comparison. I will be honest, one of the loudest things is backup alarms on trucks. We took that into consideration with the undisturbed buffer and the solid fence surrounding, 8-foot solid fence. The other part of that is this site operates 7 to 7. That's the operating hours as well. Monday through Saturday, with the exception of Wednesday. It's not open to the public on Wednesday, but it will receive truck traffic on Wednesday because that's our catch-up day. So in terms of noise, the biggest complaints that we do receive from some of the surrounding ones is some of the backup alarms, which we can't really address in terms of that because they're an OSHA standard and there's a standard for decibel levels. And then the other one is just the actual physical banging of things being thrown into an empty dumpster. And that's kind of why we stick to that 7 to 7 time period. But that's that. I will speak in terms of her question, Ms. Potts' question regarding the entrance too. There was a TIA done, and that's one thing, but there was no recommended action. We did not have the site distance to fit it on Hensley. That's the reason Fort Mill Parkway was chosen. There's about truck traffic, probably about 12 trucks a day in and out, and then on top of the residents that visit the site, which could be upwards to 50 cars an hour sometimes.
So will there be a turn lane?
There is no proposed
So
turn
it's just a
lane.
straight
Correct.
2 lane?
Correct.
And one more thing, could you please, just for the record, let the general public know how long we've been working to try to get the site?
A long time. So we, unfortunately, we left the last site in February 2017. So that's, so to date, that's been a long time.
Okay, thank you.
And well, I'm sorry. I'll address her question as well. The temporary site is inadequate, and that's why, staying there is not a very good option. It was meant to only be temporary. It doesn't offer all the services that we offer at all the other facilities. So.
Anybody else? Question on the motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Next item, old business. Patrick Hamilton, Program Manager, to provide council with a Pennies for Progress quarterly update. Welcome, Patrick.
Good evening. How's everybody doing?
Let's see here. Thank you, Karen. Okay, let's jump right in. So Pennies 3 revenue, as you hopefully know, collections have ended on April 30th of this year. May 1st, Pennies 4 started collection. So the anticipated revenue from Pennies 3 was estimated to be $170 million. We have received all the checks. Kevin is working with the Department of Revenue. It will be higher than that $170 million. We haven't finalized the exact amount yet, but Kevin, like I said, is working with the Department of Revenue, so we should have that exact amount for y'all, definitely by the time our next quarterly update, if not before. Upcoming bid schedule for Pennies 3, Highway 21, Anderson Cohen Farm over there by the City Operations Center. Those bids were received last Tuesday by DOT. Good news is they came in about $500,000 under the engineer's estimate, so I don't have to come ask y'all for more money, which is good. So we should actually be getting some money back on that project, knock on wood, if all goes to plan during construction. US 321 Barrett Connector Road over just outside of downtown Clover. We have one more outstanding right-of-way track, and we are scheduled for a December letting, which would put construction probably starting in the spring of 2019. Highway 160 West, from basically picking up from Zoar Road, taking it to the state line. This is a similar situation. There's one more outstanding property that we're dealing with, trying to finalize that in the next month or so, getting the final plans approved, and then also scheduled for a December letting at this point. I-77 and Gold Hill Road. This was scheduled for a November letting. It's been pushed back to a December letting. All the right-of-way is acquired. All the utility agreements are in place. This is just a matter of fine-tuning one final issue with the DOT regarding to the bridge plans, which hope we are at the finish line with that. Upcoming bid schedule for Pennies 4. Our third resurfacing group, DOT's been working on it since early summer, really back in the spring. They have it almost finalized, and that is scheduled for a December letting. It's about 19 miles worth of roads on that group. Also, Cherry Road, which is one of the larger resurfacing roads in Pennies 4, runs from basically Winthrop up to Cherry Park. That is anticipated for a January letting. Also included in that project is the Pennies 3 pedestrian improvement project along Cherry Road in front of Winthrop. So those will be bid out together and completed hopefully next spring and summer. And current Pennies projects under construction, Cell River Road. If you've seen that one lately, they were putting the final lift of asphalt on. Should be wrapping up here in the end of August. Poe-Quance Railroad Crossing, talked with some information about that this morning, and that one should be finishing up in September. One little small thing they're working through with Norfolk Southern Rail, but that shouldn't be any big issue on that one. Highway 97, Councilman Winkler, I know your favorite one. It has pushed back a little bit to November. There's been a lot of issues with bad material out there. They're having to undercut and bring in new material that wasn't expected. Put the contractor back a little bit, but he is telling us a November completion date, hopefully before Thanksgiving is what we're hoping for. McConnell's Highway, that is still same thing as last time, scheduled for spring of 19 completion. And Highway 274 Pole Branch Road obviously just got started under construction. That'll be a good 2 years out or so. But they are doing some clearing down Pole Branch, and hopefully y'all, or Miss Love at least, has seen some progress up there. Wanted to bring up briefly about the Highway 557 project. There's been a lot of emails back and forth about the Riddle property, which is right here in the middle. At Councilwoman Love's request, we conducted an exercise to look at this bottom alignment here. This is the current alignment the way it's designed today. We looked at, potentially shifting it back closer to the current alignment, which is the red, to see kind of how that compared from a cost standpoint. So here's the zoomed in portion kind of near the Riddle House here, the bridge here. So like I said, the bottom here is the current alignment. The red portion is what the alignment would be if we were to shift it closer to the Riddle House. So from a cost standpoint, construction-wise, we only looked at these 4 items. We basically assumed all the other asphalt quantities, curb quantities, sidewall. We figured all that was equal, and just looked at kind of the main items that stuck out to us. First is the earthwork. So the current alignment down here at the bottom, there's a lot of cut and fill, borrow's got to be brought in, close to $2 million. On the red alignment, there wasn't near as much earthwork to be done. However, by shifting the road closer to the Riddle House, if you can see this top red line right there, that is a 700 and something foot retaining wall that would be needed, so we didn't have to basically buy the whole Riddle House at the top. And that was a significant cost in our evaluation, 1.1 million. Also, the bridge was another big factor. Currently, the way it's designed now, we can build the whole 5-lane bridge all at one time. Traffic will stay on the current road, and we'll build the entire 5-lane bridge all at once. If we were to build it in the place that it is now, contractor would have to build half the bridge, shift traffic, tear down the old bridge, and then build the other remaining portion. Traffic control is a much bigger issue, so we budgeted 10% higher cost for the bridge on that cost, on that alignment. Wetlands impact, there's significantly more wetland impacts with our current alignment, but that dollar figure compared to the other cost didn't contribute that much. So as you can see, based on our evaluation, we feel like the current alignment that we're on now does provide the best cost to the county and for the project as a whole.
Now, Patrick, help my memory a little bit. This is the one that had the historical
Correct.
concern?
Yes, sir.
So what do I remember about it being like millions of dollars more to do the shift? That there was some.
If we were to go back and change
several
now,
months ago.
yes, if we were to, if council said, yes, we want to pursue going back with the red alignment, that's where we would have to back up and redesign close to half the project. It'd be a several-year delay, which that's where those figures were coming from.
Okay, so that's still a true figure based on your projection?
Right, and the numbers here shown is just like for like.
If
They're-
you could do either one?
Right,
So
correct.
Not a reality, just raw
Just
comparison?
raw comparison, yes, sir.
But our true thing would be the 5 million more or whatever it was?
It's probably 3 to 4 million more in 3 years or so, or 4 years delay, and that's assuming SHPO would allow us to do
That's
it.
assuming construction costs would stay level and nothing creep
But-
up like they always
right.
do. Okay. Any other questions for Patrick?
That was all I had for this evening. So.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Next item, council to provide third reading to an ordinance to establish and create a York County Park to be known as the York County Veterans Memorial Park, located within the city of York, to specify its boundaries, to define the nature of the services to be rendered therein, to provide for its operation and maintenance, to establish the York County Veterans Memorial Park Advisory Committee, and to provide for other matters related thereto.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion.
Question.
Yes, well, Mr. Roddy, I heard you first.
So we're not gonna have any maintenance involvement, this is just gonna be turned over to the city of York to maintain and run? Gotcha. Thank you.
They've all signed the MOU, so they've already approved it all, and we, third reading.
Go ahead, Mr. Wing.
I guess, for me, I just wanted to say that that was part of it, that there is no, no maintenance for us on this now. My question was, when this passes, this will be an official ordinance, so we will have applications opened up on county website and stuff, so we can get official, because that's part of the ordinance is, we've had a temporary ad hoc advisory committee, now we'll go to a more permanent type of ad hoc committee, and they'll all have to reapply, so.
Question on the motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Next item, council to approve second reading of an ordinance authorizing the execution and delivery of fee in lieu of ad valorem taxes and incentive agreement by and between York County and Project DB, including its affiliated and related entities, with respect to certain economic development property in the county, whereby such property will be subject to certain payments in lieu of taxes, including the provision of certain infrastructure credits, the inclusion of certain property in the county in a multi-county industrial business park, and other matters related thereto.
Move to approve.
Second. Discussion.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir. Mr. Roddy.
I've had some recent conversations with some people about, what are we doing when we say a fee in lieu, and how does all this work? And what are we gaining, what we're giving up? Just for transparency, every so often I would like to kind of shoot up and disclose to the general public, you know, what would be the tax rate if we didn't do any kind of adjustments, if we didn't go the fee and lieu route, and they just paid the, in some cases, I think it's 10% on the tax base versus what we're getting in the fee and lieu, to kind of show a fair transparency of, hey, this is what it would have been, this is what we're getting, because a lot of times, you know, we know our school districts, our municipalities, and all those in line to receive a portion of those tax proceeds, they are giving up something for us to go out and bring these companies in. I just think for educational purposes and transparency, I think it'll be a good transparency part on our end, just to show, hey, this is what we're doing, this is what we're giving up, but in turn, we're getting X number of jobs, and we're still getting X number of dollars over the next 30 years, as opposed to if this land stayed vacant, and not just this project, but any other project going forward. If this land stayed vacant, this is what we will be getting. So we're going from basically zero or low tax base to a modest share of the fee and lieu funds that come in, but we're also giving up something to get this increase as well. So at some junctures doing these fee and lieus, I would like to have that shown, maybe not just for this particular one, but I do think for transparency purposes, we could kind of keep the public in the loop of some type of education. This is how we're able to bring this company, and these are the jobs it's producing, but at the same time, this is what we're giving up from a county standpoint, this is what we're giving up from a school district standpoint, just to be transparent across the board with it.
So, Mr. Winkler.
I was going to address that, I guess, anyway, so I'd like to say, you know, currently, this is an expansion of an existing employer, and they currently pay over $170,000 a year in taxes to the county. And with this expansion, their fee in lieu of taxes will be an additional $66,766 a year. So a misunderstanding with people a lot of times is they think, oh, fee in lieu of, they don't pay taxes. No, they do still pay. It's a reduced amount maybe from what they would have paid without the fee in lieu of. But the other side is, we don't know the answer, but maybe without the fee in lieu of, this particular employer might not add these other jobs and this other investment, and we might miss out on the additional $66,000 that we'll be getting with this addition, plus the extra jobs that they're bringing in and that type thing. So they're already paying almost $171,000 a year as an employer in the county, and they'll be paying an additional almost $70,000 if this is approved and goes through. So.
And a reminder to the public too is we have one of the highest corporate tax structures in the statewide in the nation, whereas North Carolina, right across the border, has one of the lowest, if not the lowest. So we got to be competitive to bring the jobs here, and per Mr. Winkler's pointing out, we're not really losing anything on the tax structure. It's less than what it would be in, but we've got to be competitive to bring the jobs here. Question on the motion, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Next item, council to approve third reading of an ordinance authorizing the execution and delivery of a fee agreement by and between York County and Chef Steel Company, a company formerly identified by the code name Superstar, to provide for a fee in lieu of taxes, to provide for certain special source revenue credits in connection therein, and to provide for other matters related thereto.
Move to approve. Second.
Discussion. Question on the motion, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Next item, new business, committee reports, Planning and Economic Development Committee, the Honorable Chairman Robert Winkler.
Thank you, Chairman. That Planning and Economic Development Committee met on Monday, July 23rd at 12 o'clock. Myself and Chad Williams were both present, along with county management, the county attorney, and clerk to the court, or clerk to the council, excuse me. I called the meeting to order. We discussed current spec buildings, and there are 3 available in York County that are for sale. There are 4 that are under construction in the county. And then there are 3 more, 2 in Lakemont and 1 McCraney spec building that are under consideration. So the good news is the county is not necessarily in the spec business anymore, but the developers are starting to come around on a lot of that. So we talked about that. Mr. Swenson gave us an update on C-Fund requests, and council knows this, but part of when we do get some C-Funds, we get a certain amount set aside for economic development. And so we discussed staff's recommendation, which will be coming before us for some C-Funds to help with some economic development. And he also talked about current allocations of things that were already out. Two of the projects were both in my district that were already funded in the past and that type thing. So we went into executive session to discuss some FELO negotiations that were going on, some of which we, we'll be voting on probably in the next few weeks. One thing that, well, I guess I'll leave that in non-agenda comments because it's not part of the minutes, but something I've asked David Swenson to keep us in the loop on, but I'll leave that in my non-agenda comments.
Thanks, sir.
That was it.
Next committee report is Finance and Operations, the Honorable Michael Johnson.
Finance and Operations met today at 5 o'clock. We considered applications for the Old English District Commission and deferred that action. We asked that this go to council for determination, to the full council for determination of what we consider potential conflicts. And we would ask that we have a full discussion at the full council level about that. For the York County Museum, we approved Penny Shepard for District 1, Ed Stewart for District 2, and Jeff Lyon for District 4. For the CVB, we approved Brown Simpson for District 5. For Lake Wiley Parks and Rec, we approved Ed Lindsay, obviously District 2. We deferred Leslie, Riverview, and Newport fire tax district appointments. The council, we were told that the full council will hold a workshop on the new fire ordinances and possible reorganization. We want the full council to address it's a policy question of how many volunteer firemen do we want sitting on a board? If there's only 5 spots on a board, how many of those people should be actively involved in the day-to-day operations of a fire department versus a normal citizen who's not a volunteer or a paid staffer at that department? We felt that was an issue for the full council. In York County Forever, we appointed Carrie Tilley as the ex officio representative. And then under H-Tax grants, y'all will have to forgive me, we voted H-Tax grants out of committee. However, we did not approve any funding for the Lake Wiley Visitor Center, and we reinstated funding for the Lake Wiley's Home and Garden Tour. And that was in the amount of $3,461.50. And we affirmed the decision not to fund Christmasville. And that, of course, will all be in front of council at your very next meeting.
That's it. Thank you, sir. Next item is new non-agenda comments from council members. Do we have any comments? Yes, Mr. Winkler.
2 things. One, all of you have one of these in front of you, I believe. This coming Saturday is the 35th Annual Summerfest Festival here in New York. It is the largest one-day festival held in the state of South Carolina. If you've never come, I'd recommend you come out to it. Matter of fact, at 10 o'clock that morning, you all should have gotten an invitation in your mail for the festivities, and you can come and be a dignitary and stand on the steps and be recognized when they open up the official ceremony to start that. Car shows, all kinds of things going on, crafts, food vendors, everything. It's a good event. It is usually a very hot day, but one thing they did this year is it will end at 2 o'clock instead of 5 o'clock like it has in the past. So it'll end before the heat gets so horribly bad. And then the other comment that I mentioned in my minutes was I've asked David Swenson to start letting council know one of the things that we all see is the fee in lieu of agreements when they come before us, because we have to see them and vote on them. What we don't see is when David tells people that come to him asking for a fee in lieu of agreement, no, you're allowed to take a tax abatement. I'm not gonna recommend a fee in lieu of, you can go ahead and take your, they're allowed for an abatement on their taxes for, but not a fee in lieu of. And as chair of the Economic Development Committee, I hear about those from David from time to time. And so I want him to start telling council, because a lot of times, by nature of it, like I said, we only see the ones that he recommends a vote on because we have to vote on them. He doesn't have to put it before us if he tells them, no, I don't think this fits what the council has told me for a big box or for different things, so I'm not gonna even negotiate a fee in lieu of for you. Take an abatement, which are allowed by state law. So I've asked him to start including all council members when he does one of those and tells them that. So y'all see that he's not just saying okay and giving a fee in lieu of to everybody that walks through the door up there in Fort Mills.
Thank you, sir. I think I saw one other person. Was that you, Bob?
Yeah,
Oh,
real quick,
I should say Mr. Roddy, I'm sorry.
I'm so used to it. I guess I had a question for Councilman Johnson. Did we receive a application for York County Fashion Week for any kind of funding with?
They were approved.
Okay.
They're
Okay.
on the list and were
Okay.
approved,
Gotcha.
yes.
Okay, and one other thing, I know, never mind, we're good.
Did I see somebody?
Yeah.
Ms. Cox?
I want to thank staff for letting us go through what I think was a smooth transition and allowing us, it's a big step to me for us to hear from the public before there's any recommendations that are made on these planning initiatives. And I want to thank staff for making that happen. A couple of things that I would just suggest, because I think the idea was to make sure that we hear from the people before the ball starts rolling, because folks think they're disenfranchised and they haven't had their voice heard when you start having recommendations from staff or planning commission who hasn't even heard from the people. The only thing that and I know this from other districts, that I would just suggest for staff to consider is that we do a couple of things. One, in the records, that we make sure that we identify who actually was notified and how they were notified in terms of public notice, how many folks were actually sent a notification card, so that there's perspective that's given. I think that we also should have a sign-up sheet and record all of the folks who are in attendance. Not everybody, and I don't think we necessarily need to hear everybody say the same thing again, but I think it's important that if somebody shows up, that they be counted. And I know that City of Rock Hill does this, where they have a form that allows you to sign up and make sure that the Planning Commission is aware of the fact that this many people, 25 people showed up. It wasn't just the 6 that spoke against. I think that we ought to include that in the record to make sure the Planning Commission is aware of that. I also think it would be good to have a member of staff present the issue at the outset, especially, to me, it ought to be somebody who is going to be at the Planning Commission meeting, so that they have some information to share and so that they can answer any questions, if any, that happen at the Planning Commission stage, just to keep that continuity of information. I think it just makes sense to have them say, hey, this is what it's currently zoned, this is what's being proposed, this is what it would be. I mean, before we just open it up for public comment, it might be good to have some intro on that.
Mr. Johnson?
We'll follow up on Ms. Cox's comments. I think I was talking to Allison and Chad before the meeting. I said I need about 6 months to see if I like having a public hearing before we kind of start doing readings on it. My first impression tonight was my concern that this is going to become a somewhat of a pep rally for the fors and not the against. And we had a whole, other than your district, we had a whole lot of fors and no against. And I just want to make sure, like myself, I was out of town from Wednesday of last week, did not get back till late this weekend. I didn't even start reviewing this till late Sunday. There's no way I could have even gotten out information in my district about the 2 rezonings and public hearings that we did tonight inside of my district. I just want to make sure that we are putting out the notices and we're giving people the proper time, and we're trying to, I believe this is a good step in opening up the process. Well, if we're going to open up the process, we really need to make sure that the people that we're trying to get to, the public, knows it. I promise you the guy who's rezoning it knows it, and he's going to show up every time and tell us why it should be rezoned. I like to hear from neighbors who don't necessarily want it rezoned. And my concern is we're as we go through readings now, there is no voice other than the 2 minutes at the very beginning of a meeting, and that we, at a certain point, I like this initial idea, but we may want to, after about a 6-7 month period, look at ways to get even more public involvement. So,
Yeah, Ms. Love.
So I agree with both of you on that, and I think that one thing that's really important is, people are kind of they're trained to not look at the agenda, or they're trained to just assume what's might be in the agenda, and they're not really expecting these public hearings to be here now. So if and I think this goes back to our communication goal, but I think if we would post on the county website and to the Facebook page and to Instagram that these public hearings are being held, I think that will help get people here. I have a kind of an advantage in getting people from Lake Wiley here with my Facebook page, but I was up at 2 a.m. doing that. So it would help me if that communication could be done a little more ahead of time than me doing that. So I also want to be sure that when the animal shelter does events, there was a nationwide event this past Saturday. It was called Empty the Shelter. And FICUS, who's Friends of York County Animal Shelter, they did a great job there. I attended that for about an hour and a half, and everybody was there, everybody was positive, it was a great environment. And I don't know for sure, but I don't remember seeing anything about the Empty the Shelter event on the county website. So that was a great opportunity to tag on to a national event. And the other thing that I want to just say is that several of us attended the South Carolina Association of Counties. That was a great, everything's great tonight, that's my word, I guess. But it was very informative, and one of the things that I learned, I was a former Zoning Board of Appeals member, and when I showed up that first night, I didn't know anything, and I didn't learn everything, but I learned a lot over the next year, and I feel like our ZBA members and our Planning Commission members are maybe not as informed about things and not as educated as they could be. So I would like to hold a zoning committee meeting and figure out what those things are, what those tools are that we might not be using, and put those to use so that we at least shorten that learning curve for some of the new people on those two very important boards. And that's it.
Okay. All righty. So now we have citizen concerns. Jamie Hamilton. And Jamie, if you need it, I'll give you up to 10 minutes.
Well, y'all are under these heavy lights. Y'all are doing pretty good. I'm impressed. I just realized they were up there. I may be on here twice, though. I was number 39, if I'm...
You were in the consent agenda, and it already was approved.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So,
I'm glad to tell you
so
my
you want
history.
to change
but
your mind, or what?
No, I don't.
So if that was what you wanted to talk about.
I was going to let you know the history that we have in York County. We've heard a lot of that tonight. My name's Jamie Hamilton. The property that we were concerned about was 2375 Pleasant Road in Fort Mill, and I'm here to represent myself and my sister. And this property's been in our family for probably almost 160 years. Our Reverend Crook was my great-great-grandfather who bought the property, and it passed down through our family. My grandmother lived there for 95 years. Not many people could say they lived in the same house, born in the house, died in the house, her whole 95 years, and we're grateful for that. So she stayed there, took care of her family, her parents, as they got older, and then raised her family, which one of those children was my mother. Of course, she lived quite a while, and my sister and I didn't think we would have to think about the property for quite a while either. But my mother, unfortunately, did not survive my grandmother, but for a couple of years, and so then it passed to us. And so we know, and I'm listening to all the road information here on the properties. We know when I was little, on Pleasant Road, one car came by per hour. You could hear it 3 miles away, and it would just slowly come up the road. And of course, it was a neighbor, so they just waved to you. But it's not that slow anymore. It's growing. we want to preserve it. We want to keep it in its natural state. And we're hoping that you want to keep as many places as you can too in their natural state here in York County. So we were asking for an extension of our application, which I think, if I understand, was approved. So I appreciate you listening, and I thank you for your time.
You're good. We approve it before you even speak.
I know. So I appreciate you, your approval. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jamie. Do we have a motion for executive session?
Yes, sir. I move we go into executive session to receive legal advice on relating to condemnation of project number 11149-003, track number 3. Receive legal advice on settlement of project number 09108. Receive legal advice on the individual taxpayer overpayment of ad valorem taxes. Receive legal advice in the form of a Morningstar update. Discuss a personnel matter involving planning commission applicants. Discuss contractual matter involving Fitch and Associates, and discuss another contractual matter involving the purchase of real property.
Second?
Second.
Discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We'll be back at 5 after. Okay, we just came out of executive session. We have 2 action items. Do we have a motion?
Yes, sir. I move that we authorize condemnation of project number 1149-003, track number 3, as discussed.
Second.
Discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Yes, sir.
I move that we authorize a settlement proposal regarding project number 09108, as discussed.
Second.
Discussion. Question on the motion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
If there's no further items to discuss, we have a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
We are adjourned.